Right, good evening, members. It's just gone 7. Welcome to Ramsgate Town Council's full council this evening. First of all, could I just ask you and members of the public, please, if you could just turn your mobile phones off or put it to silent. We'd be very grateful for that. All sorted? Okay, thank you. So I will move swiftly on. Item 1, apologies. We have no apologies. Woohoo!
Yes, you do. Councillor Hetherington, I believe,
Oh yeah,
has had to
that's
yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Change
How could I ever miss Jane?
sorry,
I ask myself.
a work
Yeah.
commitment.
That's right, yeah, I remember now. Item 2, is there any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda? No, thank you. Right, public participation. Public request to speak. We have none in writing as is required for this particular item, but we do have members of the public at the back, and if you would like to ask any questions about anything, happy to hear it.
Thank you. Is that at the moment?
At the moment, now. Have you got anything? No? Thank you very much for that. Item 3.2 is report from district councillors on matter directly relating to Ramsgate. Has anybody got anything that they would like to report or say? Councillor Piper?
Can I just comment, please? We have had at TDC level, overview and scrutiny, a request from a councillor to invite Southern Water in to talk to us about the situation that overlaps Ramsgate and Broadstairs in particular.
Yeah.
But they have been written to, and my understanding is at the moment they are coming, so there'll be some kind of explanation about what they're doing. So,
Right.
you know, on social media or when we're talking to local residents, it is being looked at TDC level.
Would there be scope, Stuart, for members of Ramsgate Town Council to come along to that meeting as the chair of?
They can come to meetings. I don't know that they would be allowed to speak at those meetings.
I don't believe they would. But they could listen and hear or whatever anyway if they want to.
You know, it's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility for a small piece of paper to be passed along the line.
Yeah, okie dokie. Thank you. Councillor Young?
I believe we did write a letter, didn't we, to the Water Board, Southern Water, asking them for certain information. Did we ever get a reply?
Councillor Nixie would probably at the time.
I wrote 2 letters to Southern Water.
Yes.
Replies to both. And the first one was with, the follow-up was with regards to the phone that they used before and whether that was safe. They said, according to them, with the data, it was safe, but they weren't allowed to give us any more information of that because it was data protected. So it wasn't much of an answer.
Yeah. Can I just...
Yes.
We did also ask about the quantity of water needed for the new housing. We asked them that, if they'd be able to supply it.
That was
any information on
Yeah, I think there is, I've never had a response, to be honest. I mean, that's something that we can follow up. Councillor Wing?
Just to remind you that if residents do have concerns about Southern Water and they want to ask questions, they could actually feed it through their TDC councillors who can speak under.
Indeed.
And you actually have, I think there's 3 of us on overview and scrutiny.
Yes.
I think is there somebody else on overview and scrutiny there?
Yes.
Yeah, there's 3 of us.
The chair
and the chair.
Yeah.
But I also requested some information from Southern Water, and they dealt with it under a freedom of information request, but only gave me half the information. So they only gave me outflow pipes from Margate round. They didn't give me Margate round here, including Pegwell Bay, where we know there is one. So I did re-request that information, but it might be worth putting it in as a freedom of as a EIR request, which holds a bit more sway than an FOI.
Okay, Councillor Austin.
I just wanted to come back on what Councillor Young said about asking about impact of developments. As TDC councillors know, our Green colleague Abby Smith brought a motion to council for us to routinely ask Southern Water and the Environment Agency, before a planning decision was made about a new development, what the impact would be. Many other councils across the country have passed this, whatever their political persuasion. Our council voted not even to discuss it.
Yeah.
And it's going to Cabinet tomorrow evening, so it will be at Cabinet. The recommendation is to refuse because apparently officers' recommendation is that we already have sufficient information. I think many of us don't believe we do.
I mean, just personally, I think, I'll be at Cabinet tomorrow evening, and I really do, when you see the amount of housing that's going up around.
Got to have an impact, and we need to know
Massive, so
how they think they can manage it.
to have a drain on the resources, and when they're looking at this evening's news in relation to the reservoir that they want up at Broad Oak, you know, again, it's massive, and I think it's something like there'll be 5 billion litres of water in there when it's done, but that won't be done until 2030, so that's, anyway, be interesting tomorrow anyway.
Just for me to be absolutely clear, the request that's coming to overview and scrutiny is to do with the water outages.
Right.
It's not to do with the.
Yeah, that's broad steps, yeah.
It's purely that subject on the, and of course, it's having more relevance in a sense to Ramsgate residents, because the problems around the Wimpy estate, which are Broadstairs and on into Albion Street, are now coming this way towards the town of Westwood. So that won't be Ramsgate after a while either, but it's coming this way and the problems are increasing. So it's really a report on the outages and what their schedule is for overcoming these problems. So if there are other issues, but the other scrutiny is that one.
Okay, thank you, members. Item 3.3 is reports from county councillors on matters directly related to Ramsgate, and as we don't have either of our county councillors here this evening, that is then the end of item 3. Item 4 is minutes of the council meeting, council meeting, to approve the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the council held on the 21st of December 2022. And it's only a question of record may be considered. Anybody, any comments on that? Could I have a proposer for approval, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Crittenden, seconder. Councillor Nixie, all in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. We'll just give you that. Right, item 5, budget. This is to consider and approve the Ramsgate Town Council budget for 2023-24. The draft as recommended by the Finance and General Purposes Committee is attached. Please be aware the precept request must be submitted to Thanet District on the 9th of February at its very latest. It did want it by the end of this week, I'm afraid to say. Environments within the budget can be made throughout the year when approved by resolution, but there will be no further opportunity to change or increase the budget. I'd like to pass over to Councillor Green, who's the Chair of Finance and General Purposes. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Chair. You have in front of you quite a comprehensive report from the Town Clerk regarding the budget. And we have discussed it at least twice previously, once at F&G as a council. So the individual items we've discussed, and we've taken on board all the requests from the different subcommittees. The only change that I would like you to consider, and it arises due to the likely inflation rate during the year in question. For instance, if we allow just a 5% increase in wages, that would add about another £10,000 to our budget. Now, we could absorb this, we could absorb probably the likely level of inflation. But given that we anticipate quite a large expenditure on Radford House in the coming year, and this inflation rate, we would be depleting our reserves quite considerably. And because of that, we would reduce our capability of taking on any other medium to large projects during the year. So with that in mind, I would like to recommend to you, and it's your decision of course, a 2% increase in the precept. Bearing in mind that we expect to get a much larger increase in the precept, perhaps 5% from KCC, and 2 and 2.5% increase from TDC. Each 1% increase in our precept brings in about £1,000 into our budget. So that's my recommendation. Over to you.
Can I just ask, Councillor Green, if you are, again, recommending a 5% pay award for staff? Is that what you were, or did I misunderstand?
We don't know what the national figure will be for the coming year.
No, but if you were to put if the budget was to contain up to 5% increase, then depending on, so you're then covered within the budget, because if it's not in the budget, then, and you can't add it in, as was said at the start, so would you recommend that we put the 5% in, and then obviously, as you've said, we've then got to look at what, again, you know, nationally, what it would be.
Certainly some of that could increase to the staff budget item.
Right.
And any remaining to reserves.
Right, okay. Councillor Piper?
I'd like to endorse Councillor Green's suggestion about the precept increase. It is perhaps politically expedient to have no increase at all with the election coming up. However, we're realists. We need to have an increase of some kind. It's worth us noting that the majority of housing within Ramsgate is below Band D, so the actual effect on our residents is going to be a good deal less than £1.17. So if that's a proposal from Councillor Green, I'm happy to second that for there. Could I just mention one other item?
Yep.
Draw your attention?
Please do.
And it's the training. We are, at least in intent anyway, developing closer working relationships with Thanet District Council, and so the training for councillors, I don't think it takes the brains of Einstein for us to. Thanet District Council are already paying for the training of district councillors, and I'm sure with our closer cooperation we could invite town councillors to come in, and therefore our requirement for a training budget should be considerably less, unless TDC are going to charge us. And our town councillors.
If I can just answer that on that, it's something that I've discussed with the town clerk, and it's something we thought should be a natural thing for whether it's Ramsgate Town Council or Broadstairs Town Council or Birchington Parish Council, that we get that it just makes sense. So I have asked the town clerk, and obviously because she's not here, I don't know how far she's got with that, but I think just makes common sense. Thank you, Councillor Piper.
Can I just come in on that one specifically? Because
Well, I've got others before you.
just written the report recommending that from the overview and scrutiny working party on closer relationships with town and parish councils,
Yeah.
one of the recommendations is specifically that training available to TDC councils should also be made available to town councils.
I haven't got that yet.
Well, we've literally.
Thank you very much. Very much, Councillors. Councillor Wing.
I don't support any increase in our precept because although it's a small amount of money, which small amount of money is actually quite a lot of amount of money to an awful lot of our residents, it's a psychological effect I think is damaging to our residents. We have a healthy reserve. Each percentage generates such a small amount of money. So, David, if we look at the percentage of money we actually allocate, what percentage of the total precept coming in do we plan to use next year, and what percentage goes directly into the reserve? Is that a question?
Can't answer that.
No, can't answer that.
Hang on a second. I need to find it.
While Councillor Green is looking, if I could just think, I think what we have to bear in mind as well, that none of us may be here after the elections in May. It could be a completely new council or part of or whatever. So I think what we need to do, what we don't want to do, is to exhaust in this budget a lot of the reserves that this council holds. And 2%, and let's put it, and as has been stated, it's.
I believe our reserves are 250,000. Is that true?
Our reserves are.
For an organisation that is guaranteed money into the precept.
Look, I mean, let's, a 2% increase at a band D rate would be an increase of 162.
Like I said, I think it's a psychological
A year. It's 162 a year.
For me, it's a psychological effect. Everything is going up.
Yeah.
Everything, and we should be the one group that says no, we're not going to put stuff up.
No, I think we did discuss that, and we did really want not to actually do it. But I think the problem is, like every local authority, whether they be county, whether they be local or parish, whatever, the current state of affairs is that it's hitting us hard, and so I think I'm sure our residents wouldn't really kick up for £1.62 a year. I'm really sure they wouldn't. So I think that's important. Anyway, I've got a few. Councillor Wings is done. Councillor Crittenden.
Yeah, sorry, can I start at the back of that? Is that 162 a year or 162 a month? Can you just clarify that? Because 162 doesn't seem like an awful lot for a year.
162.
Currently, Band D are paying £8.64 in total a year.
To us,
Yeah.
so it would be to us, not.
This is
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
So the 162 per year is our little element of the bigger picture because.
So they pay the
okay.
council tax, and
We only get.
currently for Band D it's £80.64 of that total council tax that goes to TDC. So this is actually, with the increase that's recommended, it's an increase of £1.62 to us.
Okay, this is really a question to Councillor Green. You mentioned in what you were saying just now about our ability to take on new commitments. One of the things that I'm very aware of is that as this council is drawing to a close, as Councillor Organ has said, we are in discussion with TDC over taking over the lift, the bandstand and other commitments. To what extent have you taken into account in your thinking maybe some of those commitments that are potentially in the pipeline? And I know that there's probably no easy answer. And I think Councillor Wing's question raised for me a question is how do our reserves compare with the recommended reserves, which I think probably the Deputy Town Clerk might be able to answer. But in principle, I do agree with the 2% increase on the basis that we are fighting inflation like everyone else. but that it is still very much below the 5% KCC are asking for and the 2.99% that TDC are going for. So it's kind of like a midway compromise almost. So those are my, and just very quickly, on the actual town clerk's report, can I just ask, it says from the town promotion committee meeting, can we just clarify that the kite surfing money has been removed from the town promotion budget? I know, just to make it obvious, that was all, that was just a point of clarification.
It doesn't actually state that, it just says from the budget, so it could be construed as from the whole budget.
Just to remove any potential confusion there, thank you.
Yeah.
It has. It's been added to other parts.
I know, but it's just the wording in the report.
Councillor Nixie? Sorry, do you want to answer that? Sorry, beg your pardon.
In terms of the negotiations with TDC about mainly sites on the East Cliff, we don't know what the attitude is going to be. We haven't reached that point yet on any of them, unless other people know more than I do. So we don't know what TDC are likely to charge us for the privilege of looking after their sites for them.
So they've not been taken into account?
So they are some of the things, along with our commitment to put money aside for highways works and other things that we would have to consider in the light of what our reserves are. Now, there are two sorts of reserve. There's the reserve that we put aside for want of a better word, in case there's a disaster, which generally is recommended to be of the order of 6 months' salaries. You know, such a thing as the precept didn't turn up for whatever reason. So we've got that reserve, and then we've got another reserve which is intended for projects that arise during the year. So just
Like the lift.
like the lift, like the bandstand area, like whatever.
What do we have in that other reserve?
Which one?
The one you just said for other projects?
Reserves.
240,000. So, well, that's where it stands.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Councillor Nixie?
thank you. I think, first of all, we have to remind ourselves that we didn't put the precept up last year. So, you know, and we didn't want to, I couldn't imagine anybody around the table actually wants to this year. But I do think with relation to the projects that we have on board, and David's already said it, but, you know, the highways, you know, the whole idea of Albion Gardens, so on and so forth, Radford House especially, there are major public projects. This is public money that we're getting for public works. It's not like we're taking it from anybody, we're doing it so that we can use the works to give back to the town. And I think those things, you know, we can't jeopardise for the next group, whoever they are, that come in for council. So, as much as I don't like the idea of paying more money on my council tax, I would fully support putting up the 2%, knowing full well that these are projects that are currently going ahead. We have a whole host of things to do with highways that we know that we're going to get stung by KCC for, and so on and so forth, in our strategies of what we're doing. So I support this.
Anybody else? Any further comments?
I just feel that we're forgetting about people who are on fixed incomes and small incomes, and they'll be really struggling to find a bit extra, especially with the way price of food and heating at the moment. It's another burden on these people.
Councillor, I totally agree with you. However, we've got to make an in-the-round decision to how we're trying to get, as Councillor Nixie said, other issues around the East Cliff and West Cliff to get the money in to do the things that the council believes will be a benefit to our residents. So I think that's important, and I think if you put it in another way, I know it's a bit cliche, But, you know, £1.82, you know, is half the price of a cup of posh coffee, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And we're talking a year, we're not talking a week, we're not talking a day, a year. So I think overall, there isn't that amount of impact. And as Councillor Piper said, we have very few Band D properties. So, and a lot of people who are on, let's say, within a renting or getting benefit, etc., won't be paying it. So I think you have to bear that into consideration. So with that, so anybody else, any questions? Because we've got a proposal from Councillor Green and a seconder from Councillor Piper. So I will ask if all of you are in favour of adopting the budget as laid out this evening. Could you show your hands, please? Those against? Abstentions? I said that's carried. Thank you. Right, we move swiftly on to item 6. 6.1 is item 6 is funding and grants. So we have two applications. The first is to consider applications that receive for community funding via the event fund for Ramsgate International Film Festival. Hopefully, you've been able to have a look at the grant application. The application, the figure that they are asking for is £10,000, so it's quite considerable. But I do believe that is something that we gave them last year. No, it wasn't. All right, I got that. I'm thinking of the other one.
3,000.
Yeah,
3,000 last year.
3,000. Thank you. I didn't read it either. I did.
Me too.
Yeah, please,
Yeah?
if you would. Yeah.
Okay, the balance of the funding is £7,069. This is for the current year. The applicant is asking for 10,000. The project is going to cost them 26.5. The festival is a long-standing annual event, this being its 7th year. RTC last funded this event back in 2020 for £3,000 and it took place virtually due to the pandemic. The festival will hold a long weekend of film screenings consisting of a competition involving narrative feature films, documentary feature films, first-time director feature films, etc. It's been running for 7 years, so it's well established, and I think all members are fully aware of what they offer. Thank you.
Members, any comments? Councillor Crittenden?
If I'm reading this right, it doesn't matter what way we look at this, we are not going to be able to fulfil either of the applications before us, one of which is £10,000 for the film festival, and the other one is for £20,000 for the citizen advice.
No, can we just deal with this one, please?
The funding for the event is from the 7,069. The CAB funding is already is coming from the community services.
Okay, thank you.
Budget next year.
Thank you for clarifying that. That much appreciated. So we're not. So even if we give this, we're not going to be able to give the full amount because we've only got £7,069, and then we're out of money.
Yes.
Just thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Piper, you did. He was quicker than you, David.
After you, sir.
There you are.
Yes, it was me.
After you.
I would like to propose that we offer £4,000 for this event. It is a major local event and has international reach. And also to offer use of Bradford House for
Screening.
to compensate him to some degree for the loss of the ground.
Okay.
I was going to do.
Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Chair. Funny enough, I was sitting here thinking, I think we should offer them £4,000. With a note that they make contact with Mr. Kevin Spain of St Mark's Church in Ramsgate, who are just having their stage area completely redone. It seats 200. It's the same size as the Winter Gardens, the stage area. So screening and things like that could be one of those smaller venues. So it is coming online now. We had a report in church last weekend on Sunday that the bill's going to be a little bit higher than they thought it was, but they're not going to do it all at once. But,
Makes sense to agree.
so yeah, I'll second that. 4,000.
If that's an amendment, I'm more than happy to include it.
Yeah, okay.
I'll support that and the amendment.
Councillor Huxley?
So, my understanding is the Granville Theatre is meant to be reopening in April. I know that's quite a quick time frame, but it's saying in the notes it won't be in time for the festival, but the festival's in June, so.
Well, it's their choice where they want to go. Whether they take St Mark's up or not is another matter, or the Granville for that matter. So
It doesn't have to be an amendment. It was just
no, it's just out there. Yeah, and I think we
and events may well, as Councillor Huxley says, events may well.
we could pass that on.
Yeah.
We could pass that on to them.
I'm plugging the church, really.
Yeah, I'll see you there on Friday.
We'll on there. The biggest venue in Ramsgate, in Thanet at the present time.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Anybody else want to make a comment on this? We have a proposal, Councillor Ara.
Yeah, I just would like to support this event because I think it brings in lots of visitors in our town. And it's been very successful for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree that, yeah, if that can be given it to them, £4,000, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a proposal and a seconder to give them £4,000. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Anyone at the back against? No. Anyway, that's carried. Thank you.
Move on to this
Yeah.
one. Your next application is from the Community Services budget, which you've just agreed at 40,000. It's from Citizen Advice based in Ramsgate. They're asking for 20,000. You have funded them over the years for 20,000, and it gives you a service within Ramsgate, financial service, etc., etc. Recommendation is to support this out of your community services, which will not be released until April.
That's correct.
Thank you for clarifying my error earlier, but I would like to support this 20,000. I think the Citizen Advice Bureau provides an essential service, particularly for our residents in Ramsgate. As Councillor Young has already pointed out, there are we face a lot of financial difficulties. I have absolutely no hesitation in supporting this.
Okay. Councillor Zeggy.
I'd like to second what Helen said.
How long have we been on the same council?
And yeah, it's a vital service, especially in these times, it's going to be required even more and more. And therefore, no.
It's a big service for the town. It really is.
Yeah.
Councillor Wynne.
I fully support it. Did they open up their face-to-face service in Yorkcliffe by one of the towers? That's,
Plains of Waterloo.
yeah, Plains of Waterloo. We discussed that last
Yeah.
year, because they were doing face-to-face and a lot of residents, they weren't doing face-to-face.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you that. Councillor Green might be able to answer it for you.
My information is that they still don't offer face-to-face. They offer a telephone service at the moment. But one of the intentions for the coming year is to introduce a face-to-face. I would like to, I support the grant, but I'd like to make it clear that it's conditional on them providing a service in Ramsgate.
Are you happy to?
It does say that actually in the application, and it does, I think if I read it rightly, it does say that it is to actually redevelop the face-to-face thing, so yeah, that's quite happy.
Are you happy for that to be included in
Yeah,
the?
absolutely.
I thought it's never happened.
Did I have a second? Yeah, Councillor Rizeki seconded. Anybody else got any comment to make? Okay, we've got a proposal and a seconder to award the TAB £20,000 from the Community Services budget. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you. Right, final item, and I just want to make quick comment before we go any further. This is an update to receive a verbal update from Councillor Green. Now, this council has had a few emails splattered in over the last couple of days in relation to this item that they've seen, and some of them telling them that we should be ashamed of ourselves, and etc. And that was in relation, obviously, to the money that the council decided to give the support of the judicial review. Now, as far as I'm concerned, as the chair of this committee, Councillor Green will give his verbal report, and that is what it is. There is no decision to be made. There are no commitments to be made. It's purely a verbal report on the current situation, because after all, we all know how we got here. We've discussed it 1,000 times, and so I'll pass over to Councillor Green for his verbal report. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it worth at this stage refreshing where we are and people's understanding of the situation. We all know, I think, the airport closed in 2014, and in 2018, River Oak Strategic Partners, RSP, after trying to persuade TDC to CPO the airport and failing, they applied for a development consent order to reopen and redevelop the site as a dedicated cargo hub with potential for some passenger flights and ancillary services. For those that don't know, RSP is a UK registered company with several single-purpose subsidiaries associated with airport operations. It's difficult to bottom out, but the ultimate majority shareholder is a company registered in Panama, shielded from examination of its finances and ownership. The first DCO application was agreed by Grant Shapps, but then subsequently the DCO grant was crushed by the High Court in 2021 when the Conservative Secretary of State conceded that his decision letter did not give adequate reasons for granting the Manston Airport Development Consent Order. This was as a result of action taken by a Ramsgate resident, Ms. Dawes, who took out a court action to that stopped that development consent order. Subsequently, a second development consent order, or the original one was reconsidered, and once again granted. So Ms. Dawes, we need to remember that it was that first development consent order where the council granted money towards the judicial review. Subsequently, that judicial review, as I said, was successful in the sense that the Secretary of State withdrew the decision. Ms Dawes tells me that the campaigns for a judicial review have been largely funded by people who live in the town of Ramsgate. In the first instance, almost 2,000 donations flowed into the Crowd Justice Appeal, which raised an amazing, in my view, £115,000. All of this money was transferred in weekly amounts to the solicitor's client account after Crowd Justice had deducted a small fee. A few donors, RTC was one, chose to contribute directly to the solicitor's client account. RTC, you remember, made 2 payments of £5,000 each, using powers it has by virtue of Section 137 of the Local Government Act 1972, which allows a town council to spend money for the direct benefit of its area, or part of its area, or all or some of its inhabitants. It's worth noting that the planning inspectors, the DTO appointed experts, and the Secretary of State, in allowing the first DCO application, all conceded that the proposal would be detrimental to Ramsgate's infrastructure, economy and health of residents. This, in my mind, fully justifies RTC's action, together with the support of the identified support that the council got from Ramsgate residents. As our Conservative MP found when he attempted to raise a petition to Parliament critical of the council, that was supported by less than 1% of the Ramsgate electorate. The second DCO decision was again, Ms Dawes again attempted to take out a judicial review of the second decision. This, to date, has not been successful. On the 18th of August, in that the judge in the High Court failed to approve the judicial review. But contrary to rumours, spread, I must say, disgracefully, by our 2 MPs and leader of TDC Council, contrary to that, it is not the end of the story. Ms Dawes reports that the second fundraiser was raised over, or it was when I wrote this, 28k to date from over 500 contributors. That has moved on to this morning when it stood at 30k, another £2,000 with 568 contributors. Her legal team have applied for a verbal hearing before an experienced planning judge, which she expects to hear imminently whether that has been successful. But it's true to say, and that's as far as she's prepared to go at this time, that this application has not been turned down, as has been reported, and it is clear in her mind that it's still outstanding and she awaits a decision.
Thank you. Did you have, councillor Piper, did you know something?
If I may comment, please, Chair, obviously we're not going to rehash all
No, we're not, no.
the same old arguments.
I won't let it.
Okay. The latest information we have, when the second application for a judicial review was declined by Honourable Justice Lane, it was pointed out to Ms Dawes' team that she had the right to apply for an oral hearing. The onus was then on Jenny Dawes to exercise that right or not. There was never any chance that if she exercised the right, the Lord Justices would decline, because it is a right enshrined in law. She has exercised through her legal team that right for an oral presentation, and that has been granted. She will go and make her oral presentation. There are very, very strict, limited details that she's allowed to bring at that oral argument. But one thing, just for the benefit of the whole council and any residents who may be listening, it does not give them the right to have the DCO reopened. It is simply a presentation of an oral argument to a different judge. It's worth pointing out that one of the complaints about Lord Justice Lane's report was that he's not a planning judge. Well, he's got years of experience in planning before he became a High Court judge. I think there are going to be no decisions this evening, of course, but it is worth us actually being aware of what happened. I would have hoped that the oral report, which is now written and which has been sent in, would have been balanced with Justice Lane's report. And Justice Lane's report says that the application for permission to amend is refused on the basis that none of the proposed additional grounds is arguable. Now, in legal terms, that means there's no case to answer, none at all. So when Ms Dawes goes in front of the judge to complain about the decision, the judge has already said it's not arguable as far as the law is concerned. From this verbal report that we have, the focus on the applications has been on the question of need for the facility and the impact on national priorities such as dealing with climate change. Point 4 of the Justice's remarks deal with this. It says the erroneous interpretation by the claimant, Ms Dawes, erroneous interpretation of making best use policy, MBU plainly does not require an assessment of need. And therefore, her complaint about her wanting a judicial review because it didn't address the requirement for need, Justice Lane quite clearly says the MBU does not require a need. It says here in the report that gave little weight to the advice of the independent aviation assessor, and indeed that's covered in point 5 of the Justice's response. The defendant, i.e. the Secretary of State, was unarguably entitled to place the weight on qualitative elements of the azimuth report. It also says that the defendant clearly did take York Aviation Report into account in its submissions. The main thing, unfortunately, seems to me, whichever side of the fence we sit on, I don't know where her legal team led her. I really don't. But Justice Lane says, I have not taken into account the claimant's reply filed on the 2nd of November 2022. There is no such right to file such a document. If a claimant wishes to file a reply, the Administrative Courts of Judicial Review make it plain she must first make an application for permission. Since no application was made in this present case, I have decided not to take the reply into account. It is unacceptable for a professionally represented party to flout the requirement of making such an application.
Can I stop you? Hang on.
Broadly speaking,
I'm just-
Mr Chairman, the Justice Lane's report is widely available if members want to have a look at it and find out where actually we are. I think I'm bound to say that the verbal report that we've had is somewhat one-sided, and all I'm trying to offer is some balance.
That's why I've let you speak.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak.
Point of order.
Before we lose the point, I'm not at liberty to say that the application for oral hearing has been granted. Councillor Piper may know something different, but I'm not saying that.
No, okay. I think, you know, we're getting into semantics now, and I didn't want to do that, because at the end of the day, we're not pursuing a judicial review. It's an individual member of the public who's doing that. The issue of the money that we put forward to it is long gone. That's done, dusted, doesn't matter. It's been used, been dealt with. There is no way forward as yet. No one's come up with any proposal for this council to go forward with anything. And to be quite honest, I'm not expecting it, to be quite frank. I think we've just got to let the law follow its course of whatever it may be, whatever it comes out. So I'm going to finish that here. I'm going to finish the whole conversation because I don't think it needs to go anywhere else. And there is no decision to be made. Councillor Rizeki.
Can I just make a quick comment? And the comment is not against anyone or anything. It's just that should the council wish to find out any more from River Oak, they can always write to them and ask them. At present, they haven't been written to and asked.
No, well that's fine. Thank you very much for that. I think we always knew that anyway. That if that is what the council wanted, then that could have been dealt with. So I want to thank you all for this evening. Thank you, members of the public, for watching. If you're watching online, and thank you for our residents who've turned up this evening. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, members. Thank you. Oh, just to say the next.